Good morning. Welcome to the Newport News Church of Christ here in Newport News, Virginia. Welcome to another beautiful Lord's Day, time for our Bible study this morning. Enter into our study, continuing in the life of Christ. Today, we're looking at raising Jairus' daughter and other healings. So our focus this morning is on Jairus' daughter and some other healings that will take place. Text we're going to be looking at will be from Matthew 9, chapter 18 through 26, Mark chapter 5, verses 22 through 43. We'll read the narrative in Mark. And also you can find this in Luke chapter 8, verses 41 through 56. This morning, as we start off for this next series of healings that will take place, these miracles and events, Christ seems to begin or to start emphasizing the faith of the subjects. And so pay attention to that. Christ is going to emphasize the faith of the subjects as a part of the miracles. And so, example, when Christ healed the woman in Matthew chapter 9, verse 22, he said that her faith made her well. So see a shift in Christ as he begins to emphasize the faith of the subjects this morning. So we look at the healing of Jairus' daughter, who was an invalid. Look at Mark chapter 5, verses 22 through 43. Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5. In Mark chapter 5, and behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And when Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him, and certain women which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude throng thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And he looked around about to see who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. While he spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is, being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years, and they were astonished with great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given to her to eat. And that is the whole record that we look at this morning. So we look at Jairus. Jairus is a ruler. We look at Jairus. Jairus is a ruler of the synagogue. Synagogues had come into being after the time of the exile. They no longer while they were in exile. They had local assemblies in their communities, synagogues that have a rabbi and a leader. And so Jairus is a leader over his particular synagogue. So we have the rise of the synagogue worship versus the temple worship, and synagogues will be in their local community. And sometimes these individuals were considered this title, the ruler of the synagogue. Sometimes these individuals were considered synagogue elders. They were still below the scribes in hierarchy, but they did have attendance. So these rulers of the synagogue did have some attendance, some people that attended to them. They were typically in charge of the services, including maintaining order, inviting men to speak and to read. So they kind of conducted the services in the synagogue, made the order, sure the order was maintained, inviting men to speak and to read in the synagogue. So they were a ruler of the synagogue, a presiding person in the synagogue. We look at his interaction with Christ. When he came upon Jesus, Jairus fell at Jesus's feet. He implored or begged Jesus to heal his daughter, his 12-year-old daughter that was lying ill at home. Jairus' 12-year-old daughter was at the point of death. Jesus immediately headed to Jairus' house. So they're in a crowd, there's a press around him. And when Jairus comes and asks that Jesus would come because of his daughter and attend to his daughter, immediately Jesus turned around and was headed toward Jairus' house. However, imagine the scene, Jesus having to push through the crowds all around him, as we look in Mark chapter 24, and Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. Also look at verse 31, and his disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? So apparently Jesus had a lot of people that were around him. There were a lot of people in the crowd that were following him. And so there was a lot of folks for Jesus to try to push through and try to get through the crowd. And so the streets are quite full with people that are following Jesus, wanting to heard about Jesus, wanting to follow Jesus. And so we have a little detour in the narrative here that Mark tells us, and that also Matthew and Luke tell us. We have a miracle within a miracle, a parenthetical miracle. So we're talking about Jairus' daughter. He's going and heading to Jairus' house to raise a daughter. But on the way to that, to take care of that situation, another issue happens while he's in the street. And now we read of the woman with a discharge of blood, a chronic disease. Some versions say hemorrhaging of blood. She had a blood hemorrhage. And as the Mark will describe, she's been through many doctors over many years. And she had, verse 26, and had suffered many things of many physicians, that had spent all that she had. So otherwise, she had seen a number of doctors. Not only had she gotten a second opinion, she probably gotten a third opinion, a fourth opinion. She'd gone to any doctor she could possibly go to, looking for some relief from this situation. And not only that, but she had spent all that she had, meaning it exhausted her funds. She had used all her funds trying to deal with this. And Mark says, and was nothing better. So from all the doctors she was seeing, nothing helped her. She was not any better for going to all these doctors. She had not been made better. She had not been helped. She had not been healed. Nobody was able to do anything for her situation. And Mark says, but she grew worse. So her situation was chronic. No doctor. She had gone to all the doctors, spent all her money, but now she was not any better for all of this, as Mark said. No one had been able to help her. She was at the point that she had lost everything, no money, spent all her money on looking for a cure, a remedy for her discharge or her hemorrhaging of blood. But she heard of Jesus and simply wanted to touch his garment. Now, go to the mind of this woman. What do you think made this woman think that just touching Jesus? You know, we don't have anywhere that says that anybody that touched Jesus would be made whole. We see Jesus touching people, but what would drive this poor woman in desperation to think that just a touch could help her? We have hand over here. Yes. Yeah. I like how you describe that, brother Emmett. Okay. Okay. All right. So to this woman, do you think this to her represents what? That last glimmer of light, that last thing that if I can just get there, everything else has failed. All the doctors, no prognosis, no help. She spent all her money, but she hears about Jesus. She's here. I mean, his fame has gone about. She's heard about the miracles. She's heard about that. So she has such a drive and a determination within her that he don't have to look at me. He don't have to be addressing me directly. He don't have to be focusing on me, his attention on me. He don't have to be talking to me. If I can just get close enough to where not to even touch his skin, not skin, just the garment that he's wearing. If I could just get to that. So look at that faith, that determination. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. She has such a greater faith. And we look at the desperation. She's in the crowd. So to touch the hem of the garment, where is she at? Is she standing or is she on the ground? She's on the ground. She's not standing up because the crowd is so thick. And the president, have you ever been, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, I've had opportunities to work, you know, presidential support, and the people just throng. Everybody's just trying to get their hand up. I've been on the line where the president is coming through and everybody's just trying to get their hand up just to shake the hand of the president, just to see him or wave at him. Or if you've been around any celebrity, people throng him. They just trying to get a look, trying to get a glimpse. You know, people just, you know, if they can just say, hey, I touched so-and-so, I touched him as he went by. That's that kind of thing. Yes. That's probably the only way she was going to get to him, because the crowd was pressed in so thick and tight around Jesus that probably the best place for her to get through was weave through the crowd on her knees and to crawl through and get through the crowd. And so she just has this determination. Everything else has failed. All the other doctors she's been through have not been able to help her. So now this represents the last desperation. Oh, here's a man who's been healing, who's been performing miracles. I don't have to look at him. I don't have to see him. He doesn't have to look at me. He doesn't have to talk to me. If I can just get through there and can just get a finger on his garment, then she believes that that would help her. And so she had heard of Jesus and simply wanted to touch his garment. In Mark 5:28, look at Mark 5:28. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. She didn't have to touch, like I say, she didn't have to touch Jesus himself, not his skin, not his hand, not make contact. She just, if I can just touch his clothes. So just think of that. Just think, if I can touch the clothes that he's wearing, that is going to help my condition. She's been to the other doctors. She's seen the doctors. She's seen everybody else. So what does she got to lose? She don't got nothing to lose. She got a lot. She's been to the people, the physicians, the people with so-called the knowledge and of her day. She spent all her money. And so now in this desperate point, she just says, I just have to get through the crowd. And if I can just not touch him, not touch his feet or touch his hand, if I can just touch his clothes, I'm going to be healed. So that, look at that faith and determination. Jesus, she would, so we know she'd be healed. And so we have to just see that's some great faith that would move her through that. Yes, Brother Emmett. Okay, but yeah, that you're partially right on that. It's not their faith. And for the other people that are touching them, it's not their faith. The other people didn't have a need. She has a need. And so then the faith that she had drove her to take care of the need. Other people are touching him, but they had no need. They didn't have an issue. So they were touching, people were rubbing elbows and were pressed right up on Jesus, no doubt, touching his clothes, touching him, but they did not have a need like this woman. She had a need, and then she had a faith. And so because of her need and her faith together, she realized that if I would touch him, I'd be whole. So a lot of other people were touching him, but they didn't have a need for anything. But this woman had a great need, and she had great faith. We can only imagine what the woman was going through and had been through all her life with all the doctors. It must have been so difficult for her just to make it through the crowd. So that's why we probably figure she's down low, because she talked about, if we talk about the hem of his garment, they would wear the longer robe. The hem is not up here. The hem is where? Down here on the lower part of the body. So if she could just get there, we feel like she's probably on the ground trying to weave, or she's either bending down, trying to press, trying to just reach out and touch his garment. And so this woman went from immediately feeling bad to immediately, she knew it instantly. When she touched his garment, she knew it instantly. And it says, and straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague, is what Mark said. Immediately, she went from feeling bad to feeling good. And so so that was nothing like she went home and then later on felt better. She knew it immediately that something had happened. And we see Jesus, the miraculous thing is Jesus felt the miracle. Jesus felt it. And this is fascinating. Jesus felt that something like, whoa, somebody touched me. So now what did the disciples say? When you talk about somebody touch you, the disciples around him say, Master, don't you see all the people that are around us? Don't you see the crowd? Yeah, there's somebody touching you everywhere. But there was a special touch. There was something about her touch. Like I say, those other people didn't have a need. The other people that were making contact with Jesus, they didn't have a need. So their touch didn't register anything with Jesus, but he realized out of all these, so from this passage, we have to come to the conclusion that Jesus is who? Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Who else would be able to determine with such accuracy that somebody touched them with a need? With all those people pressed up, and you know, how many of us have been in crowded situations? Have you been in a situation with a crowd? You know, you just, you know, where somebody's around you. Now I know somebody that can. I know two people in here that can identify this. Let me talk to my two New Yorkers. Traveling on the subway at rush hour, at busy time. Somebody's always touching you. When you're in the city, somebody is always touching you. There's always a body. And then especially when you get in the train, there's always somebody there. And so there's a certain posture that you get when you're in the train. You don't have nothing loose on you. You have your bag. You have everything girded up. You're zipped up. All you have everything. Women, they sit like this, purse right here. Because you're on the train, people touch it. You don't know if somebody's trying to get in your pocket, get your wallet or whatnot. So you learn to keep everything in a central place right here where you can feel it. People are so crafty in the city. People can bump into you, go in your pocket, take this. They can take the wrist off. They can bump you, and then your watch is gone. So when you get in that city, when somebody is always touching you, and a lot of times it's imperceivable. What? Who's touching me? And what they're trying to do, because there's somebody here, somebody there, somebody's taller, breathing down your back, and there's just somebody always around you. But Jesus, in that crowd, with all those other people, could distinguish that somebody had touched him with a need, and it was different. He perceived that somebody had touched him, and it was a need. And it was Jesus who asked who touched him. And the disciples like, Master, what are you talking about? There's people all around touching you. And you're going to say, who touched me? All these people touched you, Master. No, maybe or maybe not. We're not sure, but we know that Jesus knew. He may have also asked the question just to make the point to everyone around him. We're not sure. He may have made the point, just to display this situation. The disciples again pointed to the crowd that everyone was pressing him. So how can you know? Who are you saying? Who touched me? The woman, she came confessing. She could have just went on her way. She could have went and just slunk back into the crowd and went on her way. But because of her heart, and because Jesus made the point, like, who touched me? It touched that woman, that she came forward and she confessed, it was me that touched her. And then Jesus confirmed her faith. Look at verse 34. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith have made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of this plague. What did Jesus attribute? Now, it was the power that was in Jesus. She could have touched Peter. She could have touched James or one of the other disciples. Would she been whole? They didn't have the power, but Jesus did. And so Jesus said, what was it? It was her faith, the belief that she had that what? Jesus was able to help her. Jesus was God. Jesus was the Messiah. So it was the faith that drove her. And Jesus gives it in tribute to that. He said, thy faith, in verse 34, Mark 5, he said unto her, daughter, thy faith have made thee whole. And so was her faith. And so Jesus confirmed this. So now this is on the way. This is just in the street. Jairus has already talked to Jesus and told him about the situation of his little daughter at home. They were heading to Jairus's house. And then this incident happened in the street. So we get this that we have this bigger cure that's going to happen when he goes to Jairus's house to heal the daughter. But on the way in between, we have this other little in parentheses, this cure of this woman on the street. Now we head over to Jairus and his daughter. And so think about Jairus at this time. Do you know that he was trying to rush the Lord through the crowd? He probably really did not want him to stop to help this lady. We don't know for sure, but he was probably praying, please, let's not be late. His daughter is hanging on to life and clinging to life, and she's sick, but Jesus stopped to help somebody else, and Jairus is probably just going crazy, like, come on, let's get to my house. Let's get this way. But Jesus stopped and turned and addressed this lady. And so we know that this father, very concerned about his daughter, and was just hoping that Jesus could get to the house before it was too late. But we see in the narrative, the news came that his daughter was dead. In Mark 5:35, while he yet spake, so this is after Jesus told the woman, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole, go in peace and be whole of thy plague. While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house, so Jairus' house, certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? So in other words, Jairus, your daughter's dead. Just leave Jesus alone. And no need of bothering Jesus anymore. Your daughter's gone. Now, that statement, is there any faith in that statement? They don't know who Jesus is, because Jesus said, it don't make a difference. It don't make a difference whether he's there, whether he got there before she died, after he died. With Jesus, does it make a difference? Now, compare this statement, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master anymore? Leave Jesus alone. Jairus, your daughter's died. They resigned to the fact she's gone. Jairus, come on home. Let's just get ready to bury her. Now, compare that statement and that sentiment with the centurion earlier that we studied. The centurion that said, no, Jesus, you don't even have to come to my house. You don't have to come to my house. Just say it. Just say the word, and I know it's going to happen. You don't even have to show up. You don't have to come to my house. He said, I have servants, and I tell them to go, and they go, and I tell them to come, and they come. I command things so that the centurion realized that through distance, he can make stuff happen. He tells somebody to go do something, they go do it. He tells somebody to come, they come. And so he realized Jesus, he realized he had a certain power, and he realized that Jesus had more power. That Jesus, all you have to do is just say it, and it'll happen. And Jesus said, I have not seen this faith in Israel. That this centurion had the faith that he knew, oh, Jesus, no, you don't have to come to my house. Just say it. He had the faith, just say it, and it's going to happen. But if these folks here came out and said, quit bothering the master. Your daughter's dead. She's gone. Don't bother the master anymore. The news came too late. But Do not fear, only believe. There is that word again. And look at Mark 5:36. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid. What? Only believe. Now, remember, and now later on, we'll get into another situation, John, in chapter 11. Lazarus is dead. In John chapter 10, the word had come to Jesus that Lazarus is sick. Did Jesus rush down to Bethany to help Lazarus? What did Jesus do? How long? He tarried 3 days. He waited. Not only for Lazarus to die, but what? To Lazarus to be good and dead. Because when he got there, what they say, he's already stinking. He's already decayed. Rigor mortis is set in. Rigor set in. He's already smelling. Jesus waited. Why? So that what? His glory could be seen. So there was no doubt. See, if you get there before he dies and you heal him, then it's like everybody say, well, was it really him? Oh, maybe he wasn't that sick. He was going to get better anyway. But when Jesus hears that he's sick, delays, doesn't come, waits 3 days, it's no doubt he's dead. They've already rolled him in the bedclothes. They've already put him in the tomb. He's already starting to smell. There's no doubt Jesus is dead. And so now when Jesus shows up and the sister, one of the sisters run out, what she said? Master, if you had what? If you had only have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And what did Jesus tell her? Do you believe in the resurrection? Oh, Master, we know about the resurrection. No. Do you believe in the resurrection? Though your brother died, was dead, yet shall he live again. There's that word, believe again. So in this case, the somebody from Jairus' house comes out and says, she passed. She didn't make it. She didn't make it. There's no need of bothering the master. That was their last hope. Jesus was their last hope to get there while she was still living and just critically ill, and Jesus could save her. But in between, now Jesus takes time and the woman in the street, and he addresses her. And then the word comes that the daughter's dead. Leave the Messiah alone. Don't trouble the master anymore. Jesus said, don't be afraid, only believe. This was significant. This was the first of 3 times Jesus singled out these 3 apostles as he's going to turn and go into the house. Look at Mark 5:37. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter, James and John, the brother of James. So this is going to be the first of 3 times that he's going to single out these 3 individuals to go be with him. There are people close, of course, Peter, close James, and of course, John, the disciple that we know he loved the most, John, the beloved. So this is significant. This is the first time Peter, James, and John were considered Christ's inner circle. If you look at the dynamic, you see the big circle is Jesus dealing with everybody, dealing with the crowds and dealing with everybody. Then the next smallest circle, you see Jesus retiring away with the 12. And then in the next circle, we see Jesus just with what? The 3, Peter, James, and John. And then at the middle of the target, you get the smallest circle is Jesus what? By himself communing with the Father. So you see Jesus by himself in prayer with the Father. You see Jesus with the 3, you see Jesus with the 12, and then you're going to see, like he was in the streets, Jesus with the multitude. So you have those different crowds. We have those. We deal with everybody every day. We deal with people every day. They're not in our, they're not part of our inner circle. They're part of our outer circle of people that we associate with. Then we may have another circle of family, friend, of associates, our church members, our church family. Then we have another circle of probably our wife, our significant others that are with us. And then we have time that what? We're by ourselves in prayer to the Father. So this is the first of 3 times that Jesus will pull these 3 with him. What are some of the what are the other 2 events? The Transfiguration. is one where Jesus will pull these three. They go up to the mountain of transmission, Mount Carmel, and they're there. He's Jesus transfigured. What's the other time? Go to the end. Go to the end of his life. Go toward the end. The Garden of Gethsemane. So these are three times, the three times that Jesus will pull these three aside. Here, when he goes into the house to heal Jairus' daughter, when they go up on the Mount of Transfiguration, and then toward the end of his life in the Garden of Gethsemane. He calmed the crowd and asked them to leave. Jesus like, y'all got to get out of here. He calmed the crowd, asked them to leave. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. So this is a crazy, chaotic scene at Jairus' house. Why? The little girl has just died. Everybody's all emotional. Everybody's crying. Same thing when he got to Lazarus, got to Mary and Martha's house with Lazarus. What? Everybody was in there. Mary came out to see him. Martha's in the house with all the people there. They're what? Crying and weeping. In agony and in grief with the two sisters because their brother. This is 3 days later and they're still at the house crying. Jesus gets here to Jairus' house. Everybody's in there crying and weeping and wailing greatly. And when he was come in, he said unto them, why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. So this is Jesus looking through Jesus' eyes. Jesus like, what are y'all in here making all this fuss for? Why y'all all in here in an uproar? The girl's not dead. She's just sleeping. See, now this is Jesus looking through what? The way Jesus see that girl dead. She just sleep. Why? Because I'm getting ready to come in here and do what I'm going to do, and she will be awake. So she's just merely asleep. So Jesus says, why are you making all this ado? Why are you making all this fuss? So Jesus had to calm the crowd. And then he's going to ask them to leave. Then he took the girl's parents and then his inner circle into the girl. And so he gets all them out, all the crying and all that out. He has to calm all that down. And then he's going to get them in the house. After Jesus made his statement in Mark chapter 40, is interesting. They laughed him to scorn. 1 minute they were crying. Yes, sister. Yep. And so that would go to probably a lack of faith. Now, if they, like you say, if they had heard about Jesus, knew who Jesus was, as soon as Jesus walked in the door, they was like, oh, this girl's going to live. That should have been their response. As soon as Jesus walked in the door, if they had heard about his fame, they should, as soon as he walked in, they were like, oh, this girl's alive. She's not dead. She's going to live. But they're not there yet. Their perspective is she's gone. And who is this? Jesus' perspective is, why are y'all making all this noise crying? The girl's not dead. She's just sleeping. And so when Jesus says that, look at their unbelief. What do? 1 minute they're crying, the next minute they're laughing. They laughed him to scorn. They're mocking him and scorn. Man, this man is funny. He thinks he's funny. The girl is dead. She's gone. She's gone. They laughed him to scorn. And so then Jesus put them all out. He taketh the father and the mother of the damsel and them that were with him, his three, and he entered into the room. So Jesus had to calm things down and put them in the room. So then we see Jesus raises Jairus' daughter. We can picture the scene. He took her hand, asked her to get up. Imagining the fluttering of her eyes as they open, imagine the gasp of her parents as they see their daughter that was dead now come to life. They were all amazed, even though he had asked them not to tell everyone. It seems it was not long until again the word spread. Jesus, again, over and over, Jesus would ask people, don't tell anyone. What do they do? What these folk do? They went out and tell. How can you keep that one a secret? It's hard to keep that one a secret. Jesus would instruct them, don't tell anyone, but the word would get out. The word would get out at what he's done. And so this is, of course, an amazing scene. And he took the damsel by the hand and said, Talitha Kumi, which is being interpreted, damsel, I say unto you, arise. These are that's Aramaic. Talitha Kumi is an Aramaic phrase. And so one of those expressions that we have, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's this Aramaic. So one of the three languages. Greek is the written language. Then you'd have Hebrew, which is kind of a dead language. They don't speak it because they got out of Hebrew when they was in exile. But the scribes and the priests, so everything is written in Hebrew. The law and all that is written in Hebrew. The scribes know it. You have to go to Hebrew school to learn Hebrew, but they don't speak it. So now they're every day. So you have Greek, the language that the rest of the world uses. Everything is written literature and means of communication. The New Testament was written in Greek. You have Hebrew, which is the language that the Old Testament, everything was written in. And then you have Aramaic, which is their common vernacular language that they would talk in. So this is one of those Aramaic expressions that come down to us today. So, all right, so we get Jairus's daughter raised, and now before we get the healing of blind men and a demonic man. Let's go to Matthew chapter 9:27. Matthew chapter 9:27, and we'll get that incident. Matthew chapter 9. Now Matthew does record this incident with the woman and all that, but he doesn't have the detail. He doesn't have that dialogue of Matthew doesn't record who touched me, but Mark does record that Jesus turned around and said, who touched me? So that's why we read those three accounts. We bounce back and forth because one of the guys have a more clear interpretation or more details than maybe one of the other writers. Just like if all of us in here saw an event, each of us would pick out different things. That's why if all of us in this room saw something, who would the police investigate? Would they just investigate Cliff? No, they're going to get us all. Because out of all of us, and they look at all of our statements, they go, oh, yeah, this person saw this and this person saw that. They're going to put together a full image of what may have transpired. So that's why we have these three gospel events. So look at verse 27 in Matthew chapter 9. And when Jesus departed thence, two blind men followed him, crying and saying, thou son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said unto them, believe ye that I am able to do this? They said unto him, yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, according to your faith, again, emphasizing their faith, be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straightly charged them, saying, see that no man know it. But when they departed, spread abroad his fame. So again, he said, tell nobody, make sure nobody knows it, but they spread abroad his fame. And as they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with a devil. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spake, and the multitudes marveled, saying, it was never so seen in Israel. They have not seen something like this. A man that was not able to speak, cast a demon out, and he was able to speak. But the Pharisees said, he cast out devils through the prince of the devils. So again, here's the Pharisees laying that charge. What do? They did that. Remember, we talked about Jesus' busy day. It started out with the Pharisees saying that Jesus had done his miracle by Beelzebub, by the power, by the prince of evil that Jesus had done that. So here all the Pharisees, they don't have no other leg to stand on. They have no other way to discredit what Jesus has done, but to say he's cast out devils by the power of the devils. So we see Jesus heals the blind men. As they left Jairus' house, two blind men began to follow him. They said, son of David. That was a messianic title used by the Jews based on 2 Samuel 7:12. Before healing them, Jesus asked them a question. Do you believe that I'm able to do this? So before Jesus even healed them, he asked them a question. Do you believe I'm able to do this? Remember the man at the pool of Bethesda. He asked them, do you want to be made whole? Do you even want this? Do you want to be made whole? Everybody who's at the doctor's hospital don't always want to get better. They're there. Everybody who comes, I'm a teacher, and I know everybody that comes sits in my classroom don't want to learn. So we asked them, do you want to learn something? And so Jesus asked these men, do you believe I'm able to do this? They answer in the affirmative. Jesus says, it shall be done according to what? Your faith. Do you have faith that I'm able to do this? After healing them, Jesus gives them the familiar instructions. Once more, he tells them not to tell anyone. Once more, they spread the news. And then we see Jesus going to heal the demonic man, as we just read. It's possible that he had a physical malady deafness, perhaps the result of the inability to speak as well. More likely, the demon prevented him from speaking. The crowds are amazed. Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel. His critics are not amazed. Again, the accusation that he's done this by the devil. All right. So that's Jesus healing the blind man, and the demonic man. As we close, some things to look at as we close. Oh, yes. Okay, go back to that screen, Torrance. So the key word here, believing, is the word of the day for each of these stories. Here are the simple questions. Do you believe in Jesus? What do you believe in? Do you really believe? If not, why? Do you believe like the characters in our story today? If you truly believe, your life will show it. And so the key word here is belief. These miracles emphasize what? The faith of the person that was being healed. With the woman, her faith drove her to touch his garment. If he could just touch his garment. Jairius, what was their faith? That Jairius had faith, but everybody else that was around him did. They laughed and scoffed. Somebody came from his house, brought the news. Your daughter's dead. Leave Jesus alone. Jesus can't help you no more. The people laughed at Jesus when he came to the house. The blind men, do you believe that I can do this? So the key word of these stories is faith. Our conclusion is Jesus is powerful. Jesus loves us. He wants to help you, but you have to believe. Do you truly believe in Jesus? Is your life a reflection of that belief? Do we believe in him? If we believe in him, our life will be a reflection of our belief in him. If we believe in him, he said, you will what? Do the things that I say. You can't call me Lord, Lord, and not do the things that I say. So that's Jesus raising Jairus' daughter and those other miracles that took place. We thank you so much. Hope you'll be blessed in this day. And we're going to dismiss and prepare ourselves for our morning worship.